An intimate evening at Oyster Bill's. You will know joy, you will be a hero, and you'll pass into legend as all great heroes do. The only price I ask for such treasures is you. The Cycle of Ashlash, Chapter 10, Verse 7. Bilgewater isn't particularly known for its cuisine, which makes Oyster Bill's oyster bar an interesting conundrum. Located in one of the city's poorer pockets, the establishment gained an impressive reputation over the years, with the entire venture held aloft by local celebrity and proprietor Oyster Bill. Along with the oysterman's love of seafood and exaggerated stories, he also enjoys renting an extra room above the restaurant to various drifters and vagabonds. One such person being his most recent guest, an aesthetic warrior with few belongings and an uneasy ear-to-ear smile, who just kicked Malcolm Graves horizontally through the dining room wall. I didn't even do anything, Graves moans, shifting his toothpick to the other side of his mouth. You want one of the other ones. Senna, maybe. Or Rango. Your lack of foresight now threatens millions of innocents, Malcolm Graves, replies a cheery-sounding voice in an unfamiliar accent. I've questions about the little present you left me on my shores, Viego of Camavor. The voice's owner moves purposefully through the cloud of dust and debris, her liquid whip blade suspended in glittering arc around her. Each step illuminates the dingy restaurant as brilliant indigos and golds cast strange, dancing shadows over everything. Messy black hair frames a thin face and violet eyes, all underlined by an oddly exuberant expression, while her side rests a glowing sphere held by two hands cast from foreign metal. This is Nilah, and Graves has been trying to avoid her for weeks. It hasn't gone well. Nilah arrived in Bilgewater seemingly overnight, and her presence immediately raised eyebrows across the city. From her odd habit of reciting various textual passages throughout the day, always while making complicated gestures with her palms, to her strange, seven-hand motif armor forged from a pearlescent metal no one recognized, or her insistence that she hailed from Cathcon, even though the last full-blooded Cathcani hadn't stepped foot on Valoran soil in over 700 years. Then she started killing sea serpents, 40, 50, 60 fathoms long. When any ship was threatened, Nilah rushed down to the docks and soared across the surface of the sea with a wide, calm smile, her wiry frame launching itself toward the writhing necks of her foes. As the word spread about her, she began to ask the port's grateful sailors if they knew anything about a so-called Order of Centennials, and that was when Graves started running. Now that Nilah's found him, she doesn't seem happy. Or rather, she isn't acting happy. She seems disconcertingly cheerful, with her pleasant grin that never breaks and her demeanor and voice that stay locked in unnatural positivity at all hours of every day. It's this peculiarity that makes most people unable to read her intentions, besides her pathological need to fight very big things, and that makes conversations with the woman hard to navigate. Don't know nothing about Viego, Graves lies, sifting through the rubble for his gun. I believe it was you who sealed him in Vidra. Am I correct? Nilah smiles cheerfully, taking another 2 steps forward. Her legs move in a curious, artful pattern, like a coiled snake about to strike. Don't lie. You are man-sized. Killing you would be very easy for me. Not that easy, Graves snorts, new destiny finally in hand. Savoring the moment to turn the tables, he fires 3 rounds directly into Nilah's torso. Or at least, he thinks he does. The bullets seem to move around her. Or maybe she moves around them. It's like firing his gun into deep water, a thought Graves finds inexplicably unsettling. Nilah's wide smile twitches at the sides of her mouth. Unbeknownst to Graves, she is unable to feel anger or any emotion beyond a radiant joyfulness, but she knows she would want to right now, were it possible. She whips the gun out of his hands and knocks it to the far side of the restaurant before bisecting a metal table next to his head with a brutal second strike of her whip blade. For a brief moment, Graves swears he sees phantasmal blue hands in the air around Nilah, but maybe this is his imagination. He's been getting hit in the head a lot lately. An interesting armament, Nilah muses. I imagine it works well against lesser opponents. So what does that make you? Seeds Graves. But Nilah doesn't answer. Instead, she sheaths her weapon within the sphere, offering a brief recitation under her breath that Graves can't quite make out. My apologies. Based on your fighting style, you're not the Centennial I'm looking for. Sweet Tommy Kench, ain't you supposed to be some kind of hero? Graves yells, sitting up among wood fragments and twisted metal. I'm a hero too, when viewed in certain light. So lay off, will ya? Graves exhales. Damn, nice magic though, I gotta respect it. Nilah offers another recitation, her hands shifting as she mouths the words beneath her breath, smiling ominously in the dark. Thank you, Malcolm Graves. I gave much to wield it. I would prefer if you'd call me Graves. I wouldn't, replies Nilah. There is great power in a true name, Malcolm Graves. Remember that. If you say so. Graves looks behind Nilah. You folks in the back hear that. Or should we speak up? Right on cue, a voice rings out from the street. We're here for the Serpent Slayer. Nilah turns to face a half a dozen mercenaries peeking through the hole she'd ripped in the wall. Her eyes drift past the men to a massive, pale something shifting on the planks behind them, and her heart skips a beat. She's often followed by disgruntled killers, but she hasn't seen one of these before. I am she, Nilah replies, her attention fixed on the creature. What do you want, exactly? You're losing our bosses a lot of money. Think you can just flood the market with serpent catch? We own the docks and those ships, and as of now, we own you. What is that creature? Nilah asks Graves, ignoring the mercenaries. Deep Eater, mutters Graves. They chow down on anchor graves that sink to the seafloor. Gives 'em a taste for people. Mean and real dumb. So these idiots drag 'em up and sick 'em on the marks they don't like. Nilah's eyes flash with excitement. How big do they get? I don't know, 10, 15 oars? That one looks pretty big. Interesting, she whispers. An enemy of worth. Hey, shouts a mercenary. When I'm talking, you listen or you die. Understand what I'm saying? Yes, I believe I do, replies Nilah, dipping her hand into the sphere at her side. I'm Nilah of the seventh layer. Mere battle sing across history. Nilah whips her blade outward, its glimmering water forming two sharpened prongs that dance through the air with ghostly radiance. Whatever the mercenaries were expecting, it wasn't this, and they mutter nervously as the weapon shifts and expands. They don't know it, but none of them will leave this encounter alive. The seventh layer is not simply a title, but a mythical order steeled to face opponents of unimaginable power and scale. Self-trained killers are merely pebbles on the road to true challenge, and tonight, this so-called Deep Eater is the only foe of worth, a massive isopod, with sickly, flesh-covered plates and a mean-looking maw of bloody teeth. From the depths of Nilah's being, a hungry joy begins to swell. What happens next is a blur. Nilah bounds across the room with frightening speed, cutting through her unassuming opponents while wearing that same cheerful, unmoving smile. Each strike of her blade connects with the force of a towering ocean wave, yet the dancing water is sharp as polished stone. Nilah glides between blows, beautiful and deadly, as her enemies are blasted apart. In seconds, all that's left is the Deep Eater. Considering that the words 10 oars had suggested a beast of much larger proportions, this one isn't too bad, but the size of a covered wagon. Not the most exciting opponent Nilah's ever faced, but here in Bilgewater, it was something that would get people talking. They'd remember this victory, and that was all that mattered. Nilah leaps onto its back, her foremost blade flickering in the night air. Beasts of the deep, may you find joy, she sings, and she slices the monster clean in half. So what exactly are you looking for the Centennials for? Asked Graves, consigned to either having this conversation or being cut into little pieces. We disbanded, mostly, and I pawned all my stuff, so you're not getting those magic rocks or whatever. Viego of Camavor will free himself someday, Nilah replies, her smile now kind, friendly even. The magic binding him is Helaean, and it is weakening over time. My people are in unimaginable danger. Hey, we beat him once, replies Graves. He's strong, but we can probably do it again. He's not the true threat, Malcolm Graves, says Nilah. His ruinations write new magic into the world, an act that delivers demonkind berserk, enough to stir their primeval forebears. 10 lords, long forgotten, she continues, tapping the sphere at her side, who must never be allowed to wake. Demons, huh? Says Graves. You're not a demon, are you? No, Nilah laughs. Not entirely. The ascetic performs another hand gesture, reciting something under her breath. As she speaks, Graves gazes at her sphere of prismatic liquid, which seems to draw him in. An unconscious smile curls at the edge of his lips as high-pitched, whispering laughter rings in his ears. It seems like the metal hands are almost offering it up to him. Don't look too closely, Nilah warns, and Graves snaps back to attention. The beast is always hungry. Nilah claps her hand on her hips. Ah, but the hour is late, and I fear you have no further answers to give me. I will retire to my room, she says, matter-of-factly, walking past the confused Graves as she circles the damaged dining room and climbs the restaurant stairwell. If you encounter any monstrosities of note, Come find me so I can slay them. If you encounter Oyster Bill, tell him that I apologize for tonight's damage. It is good to meet a fellow hero, Malcolm Graves. A door closes upstairs and the woman is gone. Graves flicks his broken toothpick to the ground, bitten through in all the excitement. He reaches for a replacement, but finds none, so instead gazes quietly out onto the street, where 6 dead bodies and 2 halves of a giant marine louse are scattered. The sentinels ruined my life, he says to no one particular. Neat lady, though.